Hey Alpha fam, Coach Jam here with another market update. Before we begin, I do want to say that nothing in these channels is financial advice. Everything's for educational purposes only. It's just my own analysis on the market. Also, if you're new to our channel, if you can please like, comment, and subscribe, we really do appreciate the support. Let's get into the market, guys. So, what did we say? That yesterday was insane. I didn't get to make a market update yesterday, guys, because I was in the middle of dealing with some family stuff, and I was watching this where I was at, and it was insane. Crypto, Bitcoin specifically, had the largest one-day gain in history. It's never bounced and gone up that much. Yesterday, if you come over here on the 4-hour candles, you can see Bitcoin bounced yesterday over 20% in one day. Massive bounce, guys, massive. So now I know everybody's question, is the bottom in? What's going to happen next? So I am in the camp that I do think the local bottom is in. All right. One thing that is making me, that looks really good. And I said this to the guys in the community last night. I said, hey guys, expect a cool down. You don't run 20% in one day and don't have a cool down the following day where there's so much buy volume that came in. Like I think the overall volume on Bitcoin yesterday was like 150 billion or near 150 billion dollars. So with that amount of volume, that many buys, you're going to have when the market starts to cool off, the algorithm is going to come back down and sweep some of these liquidity and these buy orders that got left over. And I think that's what we've seen. So we had this fair value gap right here on the 4-hour chart, guys. And I was looking at this last night. I said, yeah, if we come down, what we need to do at this point is we need to hold this level and then bounce out. And that's what we're doing. So that looks good right there, guys. We're respecting the fair value gap where this is on the 4-hour chart. You can see on the 2-hour chart, you can see that this has been holding as a little bit of resistance. But you can see on the 1 hour, we're trying to reclaim it right now. We've actually started getting a pretty good bounce this morning. You can see last night, the Asian market opened up. They pushed us down just slightly. Again, for a 20% day, I was expecting, honestly, us to have a red day today, guys. Because the retest, you need the retest. And what I mean by the retest is this. When you do these spring events, guys, you see this right here. You can see this price action is pretty uniform, not very massive. The candles are pretty evenly distributed, both the green and the red, as it goes through. But then you see this spring and it's just this massive drop. Boom. That's the point of the spring, guys. The spring is like a spring. Think of what a spring is. When you pull back a spring and you let go, it's going to push with momentum in the opposite direction. It's going to spring up. Just like if you take, it's a spring, just like a trampoline. Think of it like that, guys. So as these things go down, they go down with such force. And I was telling this to the guys in my community, when these things go down with so much force, like these massive, like just one-sided moves, when they stop, they have to spring back up into the other direction. They happen both directions. This is why you have like these parabolic moves to the upside that seem like once they make these like super like aggressive moves up, like this is silver, for instance. When silver made this aggressive move up, look what happened. It had to push back down. It's just like a part of, physics, guys. It's just something that what comes up must go down. What goes down must come back up. You have to think about it like that, guys. These are things that are mechanics inside of the algorithm, because when these things drop or move up that fast, they leave a lot behind, and the algorithm wants to sweep those liquidity, guys. They're going to get those liquidity clusters. So just like, how we moved up very aggressively yesterday, coming back down and sweeping some liquidity made a lot of sense to me, especially as much as we moved up. And what we want to see is a retest of the spring to make sure that this is, in fact, the local bottom, and we can start moving back up. Because if you look at the schematic, guys, you can see once we bounce up out of this spring, the cool down comes. Doesn't come quite down to where the spring does, but comes down to that general area, finds support, and then we start moving up. And this is the move that I think is coming next, which is, of course, the next move out of every downturn or out of every accumulation from a downturn is going to be your uptrend, guys. It's going to be this part. This is what we're looking for, all right? This is what we just left. This was the spring. That's the deviation out of the trading range. So if you come over here and you look at this, guys, and this is something that I'm watching very closely, all right? Because I'll be honest, I didn't think when they did this spring they would get it this far down. And you can see how much we've come out of the trading range. So if you say this is the bottom of the trading range right here, all right, you can see, and honestly, you could even maybe say this is the bottom of the trading range. You did find some support here, and then you have the top of the trading range, which is right up here, all right? So this is your trading range. We've deviated out of it. This was the spring. This was the trap. But what we need to do is we need to reclaim it, because what we don't want to happen is this. We start to drift back up into this area, and then we start to show weakness, and then we roll over and end up going further down and then trapping off a lot of people. Because what happened yesterday, guys, is this. People panic sold. All right? They panic sold on the way down. This caused even more of a capitulation event to happen. And then what happened was, once we finally found support at that 60 and we started to bounce, all of those people that just panic sold re-entered back into the market immediately. All right? Which is a big reason why we push so hard, because people want to obviously try to make up the losses they just realized. So you have all these people who are re-entering back into the market, creating all this kind of a frenzy. But what we don't want to see is, that start to slow down in a couple of days, we start to lose some steam, and we start coming into this, and then we roll over. All right. So obviously I'll be watching this pretty closely, guys. There's a bunch of key levels that we need to reclaim. Obviously the main one to me right now is we got to get back above this 80 as fast as possible. If we can get back above the 80 in the next 2-3 days, this would just look like a quick deviation outside of the trading range. You can deviate out as long as you get back in very fast. All right. I think, honestly, looking at as much momentum as we got yesterday, even Trump was making posts, I think that we should hopefully get back in. And of course, you can never say anything 100% probability. We've been planning for this spring for a while inside of the community. We've been talking about it for over 2 months. We knew that they would get, and they would we knew that they were going to do this. We knew that they were going to deviate outside of this trading range. We just, obviously, nobody can know exactly how hard or how aggressive. Nobody can ever predict that. I think they didn't, even the people that, that were predicting this, nobody thought that we would come that far down. I mean, we did. That was very aggressive. But seeing the amount of attention and the amount of, and how hard we bounced brings me a little bit of reassurance. And it wasn't just crypto yesterday, guys. Everything bounced massively. This is futures, NASDAQ, S&P. NASDAQ bounced 3% yesterday. S&P was right under 2%. Futures was right under 2%. Like massive bounces yesterday. You even have the Russell's 2000 had a 3%, almost a 4% bounce yesterday, which is massive. Guys, I think that people have allowed price action in these last few months to really throw them off of what's actually happening in the grand scheme of things. And I think that's why people have to be hyper-focused, or people hyper-focused on day-to-day price action. It's people need to both zoom out a little bit and also have a little bit of a larger time frame where you're looking at these things, guys. And that's why I tell people you have to kind of figure out what you want to do in this market in your lane, because if you're watching somebody that's a scalper that scalps low time frame, his analysis is going to be totally radically different than somebody who's looking at something in a 5-year time frame. That's just, they're going to be comparing apples and oranges because they're going to be looking at things totally different. I'll be short-term bearish on short-term time frames, but I'm a perma bull overall. But that I can still have a different bias you're talking about in a lower times. So people have to understand that and really understand where they want to fit into this market, and then adopt a strategy and just stick with that. What ends up happening is I see a lot of bouncing going around. Yeah, and I see it all the time. Even with Capital Club, I see a guy one day he's a meme coin trader, the next day he's a leverage trader, the next day he's an investor, the next day he's doing this. It's always bouncing around, and you never get good at anything. You never give your thesis or your strategy a chance to actually work because you're never giving anything time to allow it to work. So with that being said, guys, want to look at a couple of other things. This is something that we were talking about the other day, guys. Bitcoin dominance didn't make any sense when we were having that big move down. You can see it right here. And then we're well back below the 50-day. You can see we broke back below it on the weekly. This looks really, really good right here. Looking at Ethereum versus Bitcoin, it's had a really rough week. But really, essentially, guys, what this looks like, all it did was it just came back to the bottom of this channel right here. This was its channel. This was like this bull flag that it was making, or this descending wedge pattern it was making, that it broke out, and it just came to the bottom of this channel, and then we can start hopefully seeing it reclaim some of their key levels. Total market cap, guys. We talked about this discrepancy yesterday. All right, this is what I mean by deviation back inside of the trading range. All right, we talked about this, how this thing didn't make any sense because the rest of the market was going to hell. And everything had already broken past their order blocks, their major order blocks from back in April, May, when these things made their local lows from the Terra Fund and made this all-time high to 126. You can see that it deviated out, but already got back inside of the trading range. It's already holding inside of the trading range. That's what a deviation out of the trading range and back in looks like, picture perfect. You can see this is where its local bottom was. So it needs to hold this literal order block right here. And again, it can deviate out. That is perfectly okay as long as it gets back in there immediately. Exactly what we've seen. I think we're going higher, guys. Just looking at this, and there's a couple of people that I respect that have been pointing this out as well. This is a big discrepancy that I think a lot of people haven't been paying attention to, because when you have this is skew data, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, which one do you go with? Well, this is the total market cap. This is everything combined. So this is showing that the total market cap of crypto actually has a little bit more strength and is still in a major order block. We should be able to, continue to go higher, reclaim some of these key levels. I'm very interested to see how the weekend goes and then going into next week. All right. I think the rest of February should be pretty decent, guys. We've kind of gotten through the worst of it, I think. All right. Not saying that things can't get worse. If there's obviously like some crazy war that breaks out for something, obviously there's a perplexity for, a black swan to happen. But for the most part, I'm hoping the worst is over. Local bottoms in. We start to recover. We've made it out of basically the last 3 months of hell. And now we can start looking forward to the things that we've been talking about, which is like the ISM expanding over 50. We got a new Fed chair coming in. We've got quantitative easing happening. Trump keeps talking about giving out these stimulus checks. So we have a bunch of, our guiding northern light, where I'd say, because the market needs one. They need a north light. They need like a guiding star. They need something that they can look at in the future, because again, guys, prices are always things that get priced in now, are always for events that are happening in the future. That's what people are dealing with. Everybody is looking for some type of direction based upon a set of probabilities and a set of things that are going on with like the macro, for instance, and they're combining this together, and they need a guiding star. They need a north light, guys. And I think people are starting to get away from the FUD and looking at like the from October 10th and all this stuff that's happened to now starting to remove themselves from that, saying, hold on, the worst is over, local bottoms in, Bitcoin bounced 20% in a day, and then people start to ape back in. That's how, you build up as well. You have to build back up confidence into the market, guys, because if you look at this was a very, this drop right here, from top to bottom, 52%, guys. That's a very, very significant correction. All right, guys? We came very, very low, way lower than I thought. I'm extremely glad to see as much strength bounced back as it did. But again, it was definitely concerning. So with that being said, guys, if this is the first time you ever found one of my videos, my name is Coach JM. I am the founder of Alpha Syndicate. I also host the Crypto Talk workshops inside of Capital Club. And if you want to learn this stuff, guys, how us in the community are combining macroeconomics, fundamentals, technical analysis, and how we combine all of these things together to help give us an edge over the market. And then also, if you're looking for a place to be able to network, to get coached, mentored, click the link below, guys. We'll see you inside.